Good evening, hello and welcome to Viewpoint. I'm Anusha Soni. The violence that broke out in the Leicester city has led to arrests of over 47 people so far by the city administration. The religious leaders from the Hindu and the Muslim communities, many of them, have called in for peace. But the last 20 days have seen multiple instances of targeted arrests, violence, damage to public property, demonstrations, and escalating tensions between the two communities. Look at those visuals on your screen right now. This is what happened. Clearly, there was a Durga temple and it was under some kind of attack. The police controlled the situation. So fortunately, it was not really damaged. But yes, the situation escalated. We have seen visuals coming in from different parts, including Birmingham. Police says that people have been booked for various offences, including possession of weapons, assault, violent disorder. And these visuals do tell you that story. These are hundreds of protesters from the Muslim communities who have been mobilized. The allegations are also on the other side, that there were protesters from the Hindu community as well who somehow assaulted the people from the other community. Allegations have run thick and fast from both the sides. If you listen to the local police and administration, it is reported to have faced significant aggression as they struggle to keep the situation under control. Talking about the city of Leicester, which is the point here, which is the focus here, it has been home to various religious and ethnic communities, symbolizing multicultural Britain, the 21st century idea. However, the violence has only pointed to the strained relationship between these two communities. These visuals narrate that story. These relationships, which have been shared between families and businesses, shared neighborhoods for decades now. Various Hindu organizations claim that the temples have been damaged in this targeted violence. Muslim groups have also claimed that they have faced violent threats and intimidation from the mobs. The incident points out how the sharp, polarized politics of South Asia has now spilled on the streets of UK as well. We'll talk about that and much more. First up, a special report.
Communal clashes continue to erupt in the United Kingdom. The latest flashpoint was in Smethwick in Birmingham. A mob of nearly 200 people marched towards a Hindu temple, raising slogans. Some of the protesters even tried to scale the walls of the Durga Bhavan temple, and police struggled to control the agitating mob.
A huge crowd of several hundred descended on the Durga Bhavan here, and they shouted, they demonstrated. Police held them back, pulled them back, and finally had to struggle to contain the crowd.
The tension in Smethwick comes days after a Hindu temple was vandalized and a saffron flag was desecrated by a mob in Leicester. In fact, street clashes have been breaking out between Hindu and Muslim groups for several weeks now. Over the weekend, slogans were raised by both sides and glass bottles were flung. Police stood in between the two groups to prevent escalation of violence. There were reports of mobs marching through Muslim-dominated areas, chanting Jai Shri Ram. There has been recurring trouble in Leicester since the India-Pakistan Asia Cup match on the 28th of August. After India won the match, supporters gathered to celebrate, and that's when the violence broke out. While there is no end to the violence and provocation, who's stoking the fire?
Well, who's stoking this fire and what exactly is the situation on the ground? My colleague Sanjay Suri is reporting from UK. He's getting us all the updates from the ground. Sanjay, the first question about the law and order situation. Tell us what exactly is happening, what the situation is.
Well, the situation is calm until somebody decides to get together and launch another attack or assault. And there are fears that there is more of this kind of thing on its way. There are fears that these attacks and these assaults that we have been witnessing in Leicester and Smethwick will now spread to other areas. The police have been told that there are fears of further attacks. They've been asked for protection, but this means that attack or no attack, there is a great level of fear in the community. This last attack in Smethwick is not a consequence of any quarrel or a perceived provocation. The provocation spoken of earlier was Sadhvi Ritambara's visit. That had been cancelled. People from the communities had been told that the visit has been cancelled. As recently as yesterday afternoon, there was a meeting of faith leaders where people from different faith groups who had concerns about the visit were told that the visit has been cancelled. So there really was nothing left to protest about, and yet this mob came, and it was a very aggressive mob. They pelted bottles into the temple. They tried to scale the wall, as you've been reporting and as we have been seeing. So this was a very aggressive act. It was clearly not something that came in the context of any confrontation or any conflict or any incident between the two communities. Clearly there seems to be an organized move to keep this sort of thing going, and this certainly has led to a great level of fear.
Sanjay, this recent attack that you're talking about, especially that happened in the wake of the reports that a particular religious leader might visit who's a controversial figure, that visit has been cancelled. I also want to bring in a larger debate here, and there are various Hindu group websites which have put out their version of the events. And somewhere when they put out their version of events, their argument is that the administration is not acting tough on one particular community. There are people who are troublemakers, there are people who are leading the mobs, but the administration is not doing its job free and fair. How valid is that criticism?
Well, there are two aspects to this. One is, can the authorities stop people from gathering to stage a protest? No, they cannot. There is a right to gather, to protest, to express themselves, and that is basic in law. And to that extent, the authorities cannot prevent people getting together to stage a protest as long as it stays within law and as long as it stays within norms of decency and courtesy. But we have seen those laws and those guidelines being transgressed again and again. This at Smethwick was not a group that was expressing a view about a certain religious leader who was not coming. This was this move to scale the wall, pelting bottles inside, shouting abuse, shouting threats. This goes beyond the limit. It goes beyond law, and that is where, coming to the second issue, the police in Smethwick certainly did step in. There were concerns and doubts and complaints about the level of police action in Leicester earlier. But in Smethwick, at this centre, it was clear that the police had stepped in time to prevent anyone actually crossing over into the premises of the temple.
Sanjay, very briefly, I'm short of time, but I want you to tell us that other than Leicester, are there other cities as well which have been put on alert? Are the authorities concerned that this could spread to other parts as well?
There are concerns about Nottingham, about Ilford near London, about Coventry again in the Midlands, London itself, parts of London. Several temples are on the alert. They have asked for police protection. It is well to argue that people can invite who they want, and there's freedom of expression for them as well, not just for another group that seems to be opposed to them. But if there is this level of fear, people are asking, there's no protection for them, and therefore they're trying to deal with this as best as they can.
Thank you, Sanjay, for getting us all the updates. We'll keep coming back to you and get more details on that story. Opening this question to our panel of guests as well, who's stoking this fire? Who exactly is responsible? Lord Rami Ranger, who's the member of the House of Lords of the United Kingdom from the United Kingdom, is joining us on the broadcast. Rashmi Samant, who is the former president at the University of Oxford Students' Union, is also with us. Sanku Hassan Arun, who's the researcher in political economy at King's College London. He's also with us on the broadcast. And I also have Dishita Solanki, who's an entrepreneur and a concerned British citizen, with us on the show. Lord Rami Ranger, coming first to you. A lot of details that my colleague Sanjay had also put out. But how do you view this entire situation? This entire fire is now spreading to different districts, different cities, and it is only feared that this might further escalate. Could this have been handled in any way much better by the authorities?
Anusha, this situation stemmed from the partition of India, where two communities were divided on the basis of religion, and once they lived together for centuries in perfect harmony, they have a lot more common than what divides them. And they were divided on the basis of religion. The hatred that generated
Yeah.
was has not been confined to India. We have now imported the same hatred to wherever we go, all over the world, UK, United States, Australia, Canada. So this is the ramification of the religious disharmony which took place in 1947, and two communities became rival.
Rashmi, do you agree with that view that this, of course, goes back to the 1947, or perhaps the roots of it are much, much beyond 1947? This is also about the rise of certain radical groups within UK, minus the present tensions with the Hindu community. The entire argument of multiculturalism, problems with a certain community has been, a huge issue in different parts of UK. Do you buy this argument, what Rami Ranger is making?
Well, I think it's very primitive to say that the problem is rooted in 1947, because there has been an inherent sort of a prejudice that the Abrahamic faith has held against indigenous cultures, including that of Hinduism. There has always been an othering of people who practice a separate religion, which is not Abrahamic in faith. And, you can see a lot of these traits coming out, wherein, you can see the speech which Muhammad Hijab made in Leicester, and that has all of these elements of who these people are, what do they worship. So it really targets the very essence of Hinduism. So there is a deeper sense of Hinduphobia that predates 1947, that is essentially into the core essence of what other religions view Hinduism as. And secondly, I think that there definitely has been very, the action has been very slow. When it came to the Birmingham incident, I was one of the people, there were many other people who sounded the police expecting a protest at 5:30, because, information was disseminated saying that, all of you come gather in front of the Durga temple among the Muslim community. And we tried to sound the police, but even then a mob managed to, assemble, they managed to climb the walls, make obscene gestures, and, aggressively try to challenge the few Hindus who were still inside the premises.
Okay.
So this is very disturbing. Why is the police not doing enough when they already are being asked for protection, and when they're already told to, expect something like this? And it's already happened in Leicester that, a temple was desecrated. So these things, they just don't add up.
All right, Sanku, is it fair to say that the police is not acting tough on the people who are making trouble, especially the people who are responsible for in some way damaging the temples or attacking the temples? Sanjay was pointing out that there are multiple instances which have been reported in different parts, not just in Leicester, but the county of Nottingham and various other parts have been put on high alert. Is the UK police going soft on these troublemakers?
I wouldn't use the word soft, because I think the most appropriate word to use might be like, police might have underestimated these clashes. They might have thought these are the clashes out as a consequence of like a Indo-Pak cricket match. But if you see if you see the statements of like a Claudia Webb, who's a UMP from Leicester's East, she was saying like, these are the tensions which have been simmering from past few months. It's not something new. And if you just go through the few articles from like Guardian or like coverage of the Middle East, you can see this like a Hindu-Muslim tensions have been coming up since the month of May. So I think police have totally underestimated the situation, because like, the South Asian politics of Hindutva versus like, Pakistan kind of narratives being felt here, felt hugely in London. For example, when I meet a lot of Muslims, they ask me like, these are like a third generation Muslims of like, living in London who are like obviously British citizens. They ask me like, how safe are the Muslims in India? Like, when they see my name Arun, like, so they're just asking me all these questions. There's a deep anxiety, like, with regards to the like a Muslim identity when it, in the context of South Asia. So these kind of anxieties has felt, so I mean, we live in the like, post-truth era, like, each community has
Sanku,
its own facts
are you
and the
really saying
counterfactual.
that I can completely understand that some community has an anxiety about their identity. I think women as a community have that anxiety about their identity. That doesn't mean you go to streets, that doesn't mean you attack temples, that doesn't mean you do illegal and completely violent things and put the law and order under threat. I mean, I don't buy that entire clarification that because there is some kind of identity anxiety, that is why we are witnessing what we are witnessing.
No, I'm saying like, I'm just trying, I'm not just trying to like, blame someone. I'm just trying to understand the subtext, what are the what are the reasons which led to the consequences. I just want to know the nuances which lead to that. Like, of course,
I think,
I mean, like,
I
Muslims has
think,
their own facts and
Dishita,
Hindu.
is the nuance really the fact that the police is not taking proper action like they should? Is the nuance really the fact that the locals say, some of the local organizations have come forward and said that even earlier they had made complaints about some troublemakers, going after temples or creating problem in the neighborhood, but the police never took any action. So the subtext is that they don't act tough on people who are creating the problems.
Oh, is that question to me?
Dishita, if you can hear me. Dishita, can you please unmute yourself? We can't hear you.
Or is that question to me? Or
No, not to you. Not to you. I'll come to you, Sanku.
Apologies. Sorry,
Yeah,
apologies.
go ahead, Dishita. Now
Thank
we
you
can
for
hear
having me. Firstly, the police have done their best to try and protect the victims here. I think both sides are affected, but what's happening on the ground that the Hindu diaspora is seeing, and what the pulse is, that the small radical Islamist groups are forcing Hindu communities to evacuate their homes. And that's fundamentally what's been happening. What happened 2 weeks ago with the India-Pakistan match was just a trigger. This has been going on for months on end. And if you ask anybody who's seen anything on the ground in the UK and Leicester, most of them will tell you the same thing. So I think there is a scare, of course, but the bigger thing is there's a land grabbing here.
Dishita, I want to interject you there. You're saying that this has been going on for a very long time. Can you elaborate? What exactly has been going on for a very long time?
So for more than 2 to 3 months, I've been hearing this, that Hindu homes are being attacked. You can clearly see when you go into this Muslim majority area, the homes that are knocked down are the ones that have a Hindu symbolism on it, some kind of an Om or a Ganesh Murti. Those doors are all knocked down. And these Hindu groups are being evacuated from their homes. And that's the biggest problem. The instigator was the cricket match, but that was just a little bit of a fire that ignited it. And now the Hindu community is trying to self-organize to protect ourselves. And that's what happened when people keep saying they were chanting Jai Shri Ram, was to kind of give strength and courage to the community that been basically being forced out of their homes, to give them courage. So I think the narrative that's been going around in the media is completely false. And what's happening on the ground is something very different. It's a purely small Islamist radical group that are forcing.
No, but then aren't you contradicting yourself? You said that the police have done their best, but still these radical groups are able to get away. How does that really add up?
So I think think recently what's happened with obviously our Queen, the incident, obviously the funeral. So I think majority of our police force was pushed into London, and they were short. They had to get more force from out of town, but the police wasn't expecting the magnitude of what's happened. So now slowly more police force has come into Leicester and getting into Birmingham since they are no longer required in London as much. So now it's getting under control. But I'm talking about what's been happening since the past week when they were evacuated. So
I want to go back to Lord Rami Ranger. Lord Ranger, it's wonderful to adopt the tone and tenor of communal harmony. I think that's the larger message. That's welcome. But you can't deny that UK has had its own issues of multiculturalism, and they predate 2001. Radical Islam has been a huge issue that Dishita is talking about. How can the country really address these issues? You can't shove them under the carpet anymore.
But Islamic ideology, extremism has not been just confined to UK. There is a problem everywhere, because it depends how you use religion. You either use religion to divide humanity, or you use religion to unite humanity. That's what I appeal to the leaders, that we are now living in a global village. You have no choice who is your next door neighbor, but you do have a choice how you treat your neighbor. If you don't treat him well, he will not treat you well. A spiral of hatred will just multiply. So therefore, a responsibility lies with the religious leader. They have to now say, we are not living in those 1500 years old time when world was a different place. But now we have no choice. We now have to live in harmony for the sake of our next generation and next generation after that, that they must not carry the hatred what we have been carrying since 1947.
Rashmi, I'm coming back to you. And when I was a student, there was a research that we did on the Rotherham child sexual exploitation scandal. It's a very different case, but in that entire matter, which was the documentation of abuse that went around, I think, for over a decade, it is documented in academics, in the papers, that the administration went slow against the perpetrators. And one of the reasons that the administration went slow against the perpetrators was because they belonged to various ethnic minority groups within UK. And that has been cited as a very problematic aspect of multiculturalism. Is that the similar aspect which has led to the situation right now, where you have not addressed the problems which you're facing from different communities and fringe groups, and this situation has completely gone out of hand right now?
Well, the grooming gang problem that went on for a very long time in the UK, and the following investigation clearly shows that,
yes,
under the guise of political correctness, the authorities have gone mild. They have, tried to keep certain things out of this thing, try to keep things slow so that, they don't get called out for being politically incorrect or cancelled out there. So definitely there has been mollycoddling of certain minorities. I won't say all minorities.
Yes.
Today, if the same thing had happened in front of a mosque, or had it happened in front of a synagogue, the situation would have been completely different. The police would have immediately arrested these people, and if there were any further notices out there for people to gather in front of more such religious places, they would have all been tracked down and arrested. But when it comes to the Hindu minority, there's a different treatment that can be seen.
Sanko, do you agree with Rashmi that because it's a temple, that is why the police has perhaps acted more proportionately? Had it been some other religious, synagogue or some kind of a church or something else, the police would have acted far more sternly. This is an issue that they have refused to face so far. Do you buy that argument? Sanko, if you can hear me, that's the question for you. All right, I think he's not able to hear us. I'll go back to Dishita. Dishita, you live in UK, and is that the issue with the administration? That perhaps in the entire effort of being politically correct and not offending the minority sentiments and sensibilities, sometimes proper action is not taken?
I wouldn't put it to the UK civics and the law and order. This is purely, like I said, going back to Islamists that are just instigating Muslim youth to go out there and try and get these houses evacuated in a Muslim predominantly areas. And this is what's instigating. This is it. I think media, a lot of media, I'm not saying you, but a lot of media is propagating that this Hindus going into and doing these chants and instigating and all of these things. But this really isn't anything about that.
And what is the administration doing about these entire so-called, radicalization or instigation, to use the better word, which is happening there?
Sorry, I lost you. I didn't hear the question.
I'm trying to understand that if it's well known, and perhaps this is common knowledge, that a lot of instigation is happening of the Muslim youth by the extremist elements, is there anything that the government or the local administration that they've done so far? Dishita.
So local administration is trying, like I said, they're trying their best, but I do feel like we have a local council, Claudia Webb, who is known to give pro Muslim and pro-Islam statements. So the local MPs and councillors don't seem to be doing anything. And now we are forced as a Hindu community to self-organize and do something about it, because I do feel like not enough is being done and not enough protection is being given to the Hindu community. And now we're having to self-organize and do what we can.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll go for the last word. Let me check if Sanko is able to hear me. Sanko, do you have a point to make? Do you want to make?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the question or the point which has been made by Rashmi and Dishita largely is that there are various notorious elements and radical Islamist group which are instigating Muslim youth in the country. Is that something which has been happening within the community and something that the community should be concerned about?
I don't think it's just a straightforward equation of like, Islamic fundamentalism. So we need like, inter-community relation nuances. I don't think I would like subscribe to that notion of like, like Islamic communities dominating, Hindus and they're just kicking out of homes. I don't think, I think it's kind of like an over-exaggerated and an unfounded argument.
I don't think that's
so
an
in the context of the Leicester,
exaggeration at all. You haven't seen it on the ground.
Okay. I've run totally out of time, but I thank you all for joining us on the broadcast. The reason why you see this kind of violence spreading to different districts and in different cities in a country like UK is because perhaps there are certain elements that should have been taken care of by the government and the administration, and they haven't been. We hope that peace prevails on the ground. We're slipping into a short break, but here's a reminder. For the #1 news streaming channel, log on to youtube.com/CNN News 18 and stay up to date with the latest news and updates around the world.